Welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. I hope I find everyone doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. We're going to get right on into our subject on today. Our subject matter on today, it's let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. First, I want to acknowledge my oldest brother. Birthday was today. He passed away last year. It doesn't seem like he's gone, but he's, I miss him calling. I miss calling him on his birthday. But he passed away last year in the month of December, and he would have been 66 years old. So he had just made 65 in the month of November, and then he passed away in December. So I just want to acknowledge a happy big birthday, big brother. All right, let me get right on into our subject matter on today. Let's keep it real. What we're talking about today is couples working together, having each other's back. You know, when you have each other's back, you should be supporting each other. And we talked about this several times on the show here about supporting each other, praying with each other, praying for each other, and acknowledging each other's visions and dreams. And you should have dreams together, and you should have a vision together as a family. There's so many families, especially in the African American or in the Black and Brown community, that are breaking up over. Sometimes it's just crazy things. Sometimes, just like I always said, a lot of times when you have disagreements or arguments, a lot of times you don't even. The next day, you don't even remember what that disagreement was about, because most of the times they're not serious disagreements. When it's a different scenario or a different case when there's a serious argument or something serious that you were arguing about. But if it's something like mediocre, little minor things, things like he don't put his coat up, or he won't wash the dishes, or he won't help around the house. Those things can be corrected if if both parties sit down and talk about it and discuss it. Because sometimes we tend to take our loved ones for granted. That you always think that they're going to always be there to do things for you or do things on your behalf. So sometimes we take it for granted. Make sure you tell your spouse that you appreciate her. Let her know you appreciate her, and don't just say it. Sometimes you have to show it as well that you appreciate her. Sometimes wives have husbands that work real hard, and sometimes they're not at home when they want them to be. But a lot of times they're working toward a goal. Say, for instance, they're renting, and he's working extra hours and stuff. Maybe he's working extra hours, or you both decided that you want to be a homeowner. So he's working toward that to make sure all the bills are paid, and you both might be working toward that. To make sure all the bills are paid and make sure the credit is up, so when you go to purchase a home, you won't have any disappointments. So sometimes you're going to be missing in action. You're not going to be able to attend, especially depending on the type of career that you have. You might not be able to attend all those little league games and soccer games and and things of that nature. And especially those that I applaud our servicemen. We just had Veterans Day last week. I applaud them, for their service, because a lot of times they can't be there for their children, but they're there in heart, And those that are working in the medical field, the same thing. They have hours that that someone has to be there doing those hours. And I read somewhere in an article about people, in the stores at Christmas time, and they get upset with the clerk if the clerk don't know the prices of things, or if the clerk seem to have be having a hard time that day. You don't know what they might have went through that day. They could have got into it with their spouse for the very reason that they're there to help you, because they weren't at home, or not going to be at home on the holidays. I remember when I worked in retail, there was a lot of times I had to leave in the middle of the day on a holiday and go into work because the place was open. And most of these companies are open, and depending on, again, the field that you're working in, you're not going to be at home on those days, unless you. That's why I always said it's very important to make sure that you're taking that time off. Because there's some people that work jobs and don't even take days off. Come on, make some sense. Take your time off. And spend it with your family, especially if you work one of those jobs where you're in the field of service. We thank you for your service, but try to make some time for your family. Because sometimes you can get caught up in making the money, and especially the money sounds good. You want to work all those overtime hours and stuff, but that's not going to do any good if you don't have any time to be with your family to enjoy your labor. So make sure that we are supporting each other in that area, because sometimes when families get discouraged when the husband have to, and that's why sometimes they might not be at church because they're working. Their service job, they have to work on Sundays. So make sure you just keep them up in prayer, and be very supportive of them. And then sometimes they'll take a special time and to be with the family. But if you're not taking that special time to be with the family, make sure you do take that special time to be with your family, especially if you know that you're working those jobs where you're away from home. The people in the military, I applaud them once again and thank them for their service. The people that are policemen and firemen, they don't get holidays off. Like you might be blessed to have Saturdays and Sundays off, but some people don't even know what that is to have a Saturday and Sunday off. That's why when you're off, you have to make sure that you set that as a special day for your family. Take your wife out. Don't, because sometimes if you work a lot of hours on your off day, you just want to sleep. You're just tired. But make sure you get that. Don't neglect your rest, but make sure that you take that moment to, spend some time with your family, even if you just take them out for ice cream or something for a few minutes, or take them and walk around the mall, or have dinner at the mall or something, or at McDonald's or something. That way you'll get out and spend a little time with them. And don't let Junior grow up and, you not know him because you're not there. Just, be there for them in case they have a question for you, have a concern for you. Make sure that you're there for your sons and daughters. A lot of times we get caught up in the money and the rat race, and and sometimes it gets hard, especially if you're trying to make ends meet, and the career that you're in might be very demanding. But make sure that you take those moments. And if you can't get to church with your family, and you normally go to church, but you can't because of your new career or the career that you're in, make sure you choose a weekday service to go with your family. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going all the time, because that might be your only day off, and you might want to do other things. But make sure at least one of those days off that you go to church with your family, and be supportive of them, and make sure you try to make all the kids' games as much as possible, but also make them understand that the way that you do this is make sure they understand that you're doing this for them. Because sometimes children don't understand, because they just want mom and dad there. Make sure that they know why you're not there. And we got the holiday season that's coming up, and a lot of people get very depressed during the holiday season. And it's not about the how it's been commercialized. everything is about buying gifts and spending money. And if you don't have any money, make sure you spend some time with your family. Cook them a decent meal that day, or take them out or something. You just have to make sure that we are spending that time, quality time with each other, and and just make sure you're keeping it real with your family. Make sure that you're again, and we always stress that on this program, that you're supporting each other as husband and wife. Don't have your own thing and she got her own thing, and that doesn't make sense. Because once you got married, once you said I do, you become one. And once you become one, it's easy to work together because first of all, once you get married, you are a team, and you can't win or reach your goals as a couple if your team is split. If your team is divided, and there's so many households that's divided. The wife and wife and husband and wife is always arguing, and the children are not getting along. They're not, and it rubs off on the children when the husband and wife is not getting along. They go to school, have a hard time at school because they're not getting along. So make sure that we are keeping harmony within the house. Sometimes you in the household, sometimes you have to swallow your pride, and just because you're right don't mean you got to say, yeah, I told you I'm right. No, you don't want to go there, right? I told you so. That shouldn't even be that shouldn't be in your conversation, especially if you had a discussion about something. Then all of a sudden you find out you're right, and you just want to just rub it in and make it worse. Come on, people, make some sense. Sometimes just because you're right don't mean you got to say something. We talked about that one other time. Just because you're right, even ministers, just because something is right, you have to have the right time to say it. Let me repeat that. When you're right, it has to be said at the right time, because you could be right and say it at the wrong time, and it is not effective. In order for your righteousness to be effective, it has to be done at the right time. And so many ministers and husbands and wives, when you're like that in the pulpit, that kind of rubs off on all the male parishioners that you have. They go home and treat their wives the same way. That's why you have to be careful if you're a pastor or a minister or something, when you're in the pulpit, how you relay the truth to the parishioners. You don't want to relay it a harsh way. You want to make sure that when you relay the truth, people will say, "Oh, yeah, that is me. That's how I, instead of, no, you ain't talking to me," because that happens in the household. When you tell the truth the wrong way. Well, what you say? Then they try to think of something that you did that, come up. You don't want to go that route. So make sure that when you, as a team, just like in successful teams, if a player is off that day, his game is off that day, they don't, get back in the locker room and make him feel bad. We wouldn't have lost that game if you hadn't missed that shot. How do you think they're gonna make him feel? And same thing in a marriage, when something goes wrong, we wouldn't be in this predicament if it wasn't for you. You have to make sure that as a team, we have to support each other, and we'll get them the next time. We'll do better the next time. Let's just pray about it the next time. Working together as a team is very important in the marriage, and sometimes you think that it's me, just only me, I'm right all the time. You have those people that want to be right all the time, and that's why marriage is and being a Christian is so similar, because you have these ministers that always think they're right. Nobody can tell them when they're wrong. But just because you're a minister, first of all, you were a man before you were a minister. Or you were a man before you were a pastor, so you can be wrong. You're not always right. No one is always right. The only person that I know that was always right is sitting on the right hand of God. And I know you ain't sitting on the right hand of God. So, you're not always right, and just because, again, just because you have the truth don't mean it's the right time to tell the truth. To tell the truth is to tell it at the right time. There's a time for all things under the sun. There's a time to tell the truth, and there's a time to restrain and hold back. Hold your peace. You don't want to be, because sometimes we're just so offensive to each other, and then we don't want to apologize because we know we were right. Just because you were right, if you offended somebody, even though you're right, you still apologize to them. You don't, and don't give them that apology where you still saying you're right. I'm sorry, but you know I was right. You just messed up your apology. So make sure that we are supporting each other in this wedding and family atmosphere. After that wedding, you want to make sure that everything still goes smooth. Just because the honeymoon is over doesn't mean that the love has to cease. When the honeymoon is over, that's when the love begins. That's when reality sets in. That's when you begin to work as a team. Because what it is when you're on the honeymoon, that's when you won a championship. The best teams are the ones that come back and win another championship. Just because you won a championship don't mean that you go lackadaisical. And that's what happens in a lot of marriages. After the honeymoon, which is the championship, after they won that honeymoon and get back from that honeymoon and get back to reality, the teamwork is no longer there. But after you had that honeymoon, make sure the teamwork begins. That's when the teamwork begins. That's when you start working together. That's when you start working towards your goals in life. Make sure you set some goals as a married couple. Make sure you have some dreams that you're going to be dreams that are attainable, not dreams just out of the clear blue sky, but dreams that are attainable. And you always include the Lord and always say the Lord's will. Because sometimes we'll go on and have these dreams and make these plans and not saying that the Lord. So it might not be the Lord's will for you to go the route that you're trying to go. He's probably trying to take you in a different direction. And trust me, he'll get your attention if he wants you to go in a different direction. So as a husband and wife, we have to make sure that we keep it real between each other. And when I say keep it real, that does not mean that you being overbearing with the truth, and every time you turn around you want to tell them that their eggs don't taste right, they burnt. She worked hard all week the same time as you did, or worked longer hours than you did, and you gonna complain about the eggs, gonna complain about her cooking and stuff. You do it yourself if you gotta complain. Say, oh, I'll take care of dinner tonight. Lift each other up. Be respectful and make sure that we are supporting. And we always stress this on this program. Make sure we are supporting each other. Make sure, because when you support each other, your children support each other as well. There's nothing worse than having siblings that don't get along. And usually, if you find siblings that don't get along, that means there's either one parent in the household or the husband and the wife is not getting along. And then that's when you'll find siblings not getting along. Because most siblings you should be close with your siblings. And if you see that closeness between mom and dad, you're going to be close with your siblings as well. And then when you venture out and get married and everything, you're going to be close with your spouse because you've seen that in the household. When you see dad not always thinking he's right, then you will be like that. As a young man, you'll be. If you see dad as a gentleman, you will become a gentleman. If you see dad overbearing and mean and throwing things around and breaking stuff, guess what? You're gonna do the same thing. We are creatures of habit. When you see dad do it, you're gonna do it. So this is Pastor Larry saying, let's keep it real. Until we meet again, this is Pastor Larry with let's talk marriage. Now remember, all the music that you hear on our program is from a app called Whoop Triggers Plus. This is a very excellent app for those churches that don't have musicians or can't afford to have musicians, because we all know that music in the church, it sets the pace for the ministry, it sets the pace for deliverance, it sets the pace for praise and worship. So if you don't have a praise and worship team, or you don't have musicians, you're a small ministry just starting out, try Whoop Triggers Plus. Only thing you would need is a Bluetooth speaker, and you can get them in any size you want to, and you can fill an arena with some Bluetooth speakers. And I'm telling you, it's an awesome app. It's called Whoop Triggers Plus, and it's you can find it on the App Store if you have a iPhone, and if you have the other phone, you can. I'm pretty sure you can find it on that app too. But I don't know about the the App Store. All right, this is Pastor Larry signing off. Till we meet again with Let's Talk Marriage.